Hi guys, my name's Dale and welcome to D&DGaming. If this is your first time visiting our channel, we provide honest, in-depth game reviews on a wide range of PC games and review them from the perspective of two experienced gamers. We highly recommend you click that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our up-and-coming game reviews. If you find you like this review, remember to give it a thumbs up by hitting that like button. That being said, in for review this time around is 2 Point Hospital. Reviewing the game with me is my brother Dav.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. 2 Point Hospital is a hospital simulation game developed by 2 Point Studios and published by Sega. The game is considered a spiritual successor to the 1997 hospital sim Theme Hospital. The game is set in fictional 2 Point County, where players are tasked with building and managing a number of hospitals with the aim of making them successful and profitable. The game released in 2018 on Windows PC, MacOS X, Linux, with console versions for PlayStation 4, Xbox One and Nintendo Switch following on in 2020. The game was very successful in the sales charts at the time and released to critical acclaim, and since has received 4 major DLCs. A successor to the game, 2 Point Campus, is expected to release in May 2022, whereby players build and manage a university campus. So Dale, what are your first impressions?
Well, my first impressions were that this was basically a modern version of the 90s classic Theme Hospital, which is not a surprise given that the game was designed and developed by some of the creators of Theme Hospital. Theme Hospital is such a classic game and I've played it so many times over the years. Pretty much had it installed on my PC in some form for the last 15 years or so. The most recent version being the Core 6TH, which was a modded version of the original, designed to run better on modern hardware essentially. But yeah, such a classic and nostalgic game for me, and so I was really looking forward to this, seeing it was basically an updated version of that.
Yeah, my initial impression of this was simply Theme Hospital with better graphics. I mean, it evokes those memories of playing Theme Hospital when I was younger, and again, I've had it installed multiple times over the years. I haven't played the Core 6TH version. Even just playing the original, it's just a classic game, and I was really looking forward to 2 Point, and it didn't disappoint. So what are your general thoughts following the playthrough?
So I really enjoyed my playthrough, and it's actually really hard to fault this one. I feel it immediately felt like a modern and improved version of Theme Hospital, and it's great to see that the devs haven't ruined the game, as is quite often the case in modern remakes. I guess it helps that some of the original team were involved, and you can tell they were passionate about keeping it true to the original game, whilst also just modernising it really, and I think they just got it spot on. Obviously you have to really like management simulation games to really get the most from this, and despite the premise seeming a bit boring, the management of the hospital is really quite fun and rarely gets boring. I wouldn't say it's so much a simulation game. It's kind of marketed as that, but I wouldn't say it's quite that deep. It's more of really just a management type game. There is a lot going on most of the time and a lot to manage, as you'd expect. You know, you're essentially running an entire hospital, but it does start off very easy and allows you to get to grips with the basics.
Yeah, I thought the game was awesome. They've really done Theme Hospital justice. I was quite concerned before playing it that they may ruin classic Theme Hospital by following up with a newer version, but this simply builds on what Theme Hospital started. I think it's quite a worthy spiritual successor to the game.
So in terms of graphic options, there's a decent range of graphic options given the style of game. I didn't expect much and I didn't really change much. I just set the preset to very high, and it was good to see some of the deeper options though, such as shadow quality and draw distance. And I expect this would run on even a very basic system, as the graphics really aren't that taxing. If anything, it might be more taxing on the CPU just because of the amount that's going on the screen at times. But yeah, I thought the graphic options were fine.
Yeah, I thought it was a good range and ways you can tweak the settings to your setup, but I did the same, really set it on very high, and yeah, it ran really well.
So in terms of the graphics themselves and graphics performance, this has that more cartoony style of graphics, but there's some great detail when you zoom down. Yeah, they've done a good job of, you know, you can go down to a very low level and you get all that detail of like when they're working on the machines and you see exactly how they're doing the illnesses. It's really quite funny to zoom in and see that. I had no issues with the graphic style, but I guess some people might not like the style if they want more of a serious game, but it does have that kind of jokey feel and a kind of cartoonish type look to it. which I guess eases up on like what could be a very serious game, being in a hospital setting. But I think they got a good balance there. In terms of the performance, it ran well on the very high settings for me, and I didn't have any issues at all.
Yeah, so in terms of graphics for me, we'll put our PC specs up on screen as always, but I ran with the game on high settings and it ran perfectly well. No frame drops or graphical issues of any kind. In terms of the graphics themselves, yeah, they're as Dale said, they're quite cartoony, but I really do think it suits the game. The game doesn't really take itself too seriously in terms of its gameplay and its humour, and I don't think it would work if it had super realistic graphics combined with that type of gameplay. The cartoon style textures and vibrant colours really suit the sort of humorous nature of the game.
In terms of player controls, pretty basic here. Basically just mouse and keyboard controls. I found I mostly just used the mouse actually, obviously for placing objects and designing the layout and the rooms, etc. But you can also use WASD to move the camera around. Again, personally, I actually mostly just use the mouse for moving the camera as well, so very limited needed on the keyboard for me.
Yeah, so the controls are pretty simple. You can, as Dale's pointed out, use WASD to move around, Q and E to rotate the camera left and right, and R and F to pivot the viewing angle up and down. I found that I actually used a combination of the keyboard and mouse as I moved around. I guess I just found it a bit smoother and a bit quicker than just using the mouse. Full key rebindings are available in the controls menu, and there is controller support, although we didn't actually test that as part of the review.
So in terms of gameplay, it's a micromanaging hospital simulator in which your aim is to run multiple successful and profitable hospitals across the fictional 2-point county. By building your hospital up with diagnostic rooms, good staff and increasing patient numbers, your task is to keep the hospital running well whilst expanding to fulfil the hospital's full potential. In each hospital, the aim is to complete a set number of main challenges. Once these are complete, you get a star for the hospital, and this can be out of a maximum of 3 stars per hospital. Getting 1 star unlocks the next hospital in the county. Main challenges can include things such as curing a set number of patients, increasing the hospital's value, and providing a specific health service. There are also minor challenges set by the game and by staff members, such as impressing the local health visitor, training a set number of staff in a time frame, and promoting a set number of staff.
So in terms of mechanics, the hospitals typically start with one main empty building that you begin by populating. You can usually buy additional plots of land adjacent to expand your hospital. You use hospital funds to lay blueprints for the rooms inside your hospital and fit the rooms out with hospital equipment to provide the necessary health services. You can then employ doctors, nurses and assistants to run the services and employ janitors to keep your hospital clean. What the fuck? You not only build up the health services, but you're also managing the staff in terms of training, pay, happiness, and a wide range of other things. Patients also require management of sorts. You have to provide a suitable environment to keep them happy, and this includes items such as seating, snack and drinks machines, entertainment such as magazines, and ensuring your hospital is adequately heated. There are usually some kind of issues to overcome whilst building hospitals, such as earthquakes and damaged machinery. So in terms of UI, there's a simple UI in this. It helps keep the screen quite clutter-free. However, as with all micromanaging sim games, there are quite a few menus and sub-menus breaking down the analysis of your hospital. The analysis menus themselves include financial information for your hospital, a large range of patient and staff statistics, and hospital reputation information.
Yeah, I thought the UI is used well in this. It doesn't clutter up the screen much, even when there's a lot of information on there and a lot of stuff going on. Found that the menus are easy to navigate and found the UI to be just well designed generally.
So in terms of sound and music, the sounds are really great in this and it really helps to make the game. There's a hospital radio called 2-Point Radio that has a varied range of music interspersed with hilarious adverts.
Trouble making ends meet. Need some extra dough? Call Smell My Cash. Because an 80% interest repayment rate is nothing to sniff at. Smell My Cash. The desperate solution.
The hospital announcer is straight out of Fume Hospital. She sounds exactly the same. The announcements are really varied and, like the radio adverts, are often really funny.
If you have any questions, first ask yourself why that might be.
The game sounds generally also really great. The noises the patients make when getting treatment is really varied, and there's just lots of funny sounds, like when you hover over the toilets and people are in there, all you hear is patients farting.
Yeah, I thought there were genuinely funny voiceovers from the hospital announcer and the radio stations. Really well done, not cheesy at all, and just really made me laugh out loud numerous times.
I visited a sick friend who has taken the foolish decision to check himself into one of Holistic's nature communes. Call me old-fashioned, but patients are supposed to be treated by doctors in hospitals, not have leaves rubbed on them by druids.
Oh, it's great, catchy music and the radio stations. I really enjoyed some of the tracks. Some of them did sound very similar to Theme Hospital, which was great, keeping that similar vibe. And yeah, when a few of them came on, I really kind of just was like, oh yeah, I love this song. Well, there's great sound effects for the machines themselves and the general kind of ambient sounds around the hospital, all really well done. So did you find any bugs or glitches in this one?
I didn't come across any major bugs or glitches in the game at all. There was a slight freeze when the game is auto-saving, but this didn't negatively impact the game at all, and it's quite a frequent one in a lot of games, really.
Yeah, I didn't come across any significant bugs at all, but I did find the mouse had some issues on the right-hand side of the screen when edge scrolling across the map. So essentially in the options, you have the option to turn on or off the edge scrolling. So when you reach the edge of the screen, it will either move across, or if you turn it off, then it won't, and you have to manually kind of click to move it. I generally prefer to have edge scrolling on, so when I want to move around the map, just throw the mouse over to that side of the screen and it'll move. In this, I think it struggled to work out if I was hovering on the UI itself or wanting to move around the map, and it was a little bit intermittent. This didn't happen on any other parts of the screen. It was just on the right hand side where a lot of the UI is, so I do think it was connected to that. It was by no means a major issue though, so I'm not going to mark it down, and obviously it could have issues, were sad if necessary.
So to sum up, things I liked about the game, it's just as I'd hoped, really. An updated and expanded Theme Hospital game, really, a classic that everyone remembers playing in the late 90s. This really builds on that quite nicely. I thought it was quite deep in terms of its micromanaging and analysis, and there's not an element I can think of that they hadn't analysed or had a statistic for in some way. I like the huge variety of illnesses and conditions that the patients come in with, and the equivalent number of diagnostic rooms to cure the conditions. I like the huge range of items to fit out the hospital with, although it's worth noting that lots of them need to be unlocked, so you don't necessarily get them right at the start, but there are quite a few to unlock. The humour in the game is great. It's quite dark in a way, poking fun at illnesses can be a difficult area to tread in terms of comedy, but it's done in a really funny, light way that can't really be taken seriously. And you find yourself laughing at almost everything in the game, from the illnesses that the patients come in with to the random tannoy announcements. I like the way you can set specialist skills for the staff members so that they're far more likely to be able to treat the patient and don't keep wandering off into other departments. That was something that used to annoy me about Theme Hospital.
So I feel like this improves on Theme Hospital in almost every way. Got more rooms, a range of illnesses, more decorative items, more levels, better UI. I really do feel like they took everything that was great about Theme Hospital and actually improved on it. Often in the original, I'd find myself wanting to place more varied items and add more to the rooms, and this allows plenty of that, as there's a high level of customization. I'd often find myself meticulously designing the room, making sure I've placed items that are ultimately not really needed, like numerous pictures, and I've got to make sure there's a clock in each room, and the furniture in exactly the right place, and I'd spend ages just getting every room just right. But it's great humour and great music in this. It stays fun, doesn't take itself too seriously, whilst allowing fairly deep levels of micromanagement. You can usually complete the levels by avoiding any real deep micromanagement if you want, and just stick with the basics, which will likely be enough just to get you the 1 star. But if you want to get 3 stars, it takes a lot more work, and you need to be more involved in really getting down into the mechanics of the game. There is another similar game out there that's much more serious on a similar premise, but for this, it strikes the balance right for me. Not too serious, and they managed to keep it humorous despite the fact that it could be very serious subjects. So it's not easy to do. Every level adds something different to keep things interesting, and I feel they did a good job of introducing a mix of new illnesses and other challenges just when you feel it's getting a bit repetitive. It always keeps it fresh.
So in terms of things I didn't like, it's hard to fault this game really. However, it does get very hard as you go through. Sometimes this can lead to frustration when you spent a couple of hours building up a hospital and then it fails to meet the required challenges for one reason or another, and then you need to start all over again. The game does push through the days very quickly, and sometimes I felt that it needed to slow down a bit and take things at more of a realistic pace.
Yeah, it is quite hard to fault this one. If I was kind of nitpicking, I'd say I did find the notification sound a little annoying, as it sounds kind of like a phone notification. It was kind of triggering me every time it went off, which it goes off quite a lot when you get further into the game and you're getting kind of constant notifications about new illnesses or emergencies and stuff like that. And yeah, it would have been nice to have a slightly different sound there. I didn't really like the Sega product placement. Luckily, it wasn't too obvious, but there's quite a lot of decorative items that are based on like Sonic and other kind of Sega games, and you can place these around the hospital. I didn't unlock any of them because they just seemed out of place, and so I chose not to use them. But yeah, it was a little bit of kind of unusual product placement. Luckily, because it wasn't, you didn't have to use them. It was kind of optional, which was nice at least.
So do you think there's any missed opportunities in this one?
So it's nice to have the ability to buy the new plots of land around the main single building that you start with on each level, but it would have been nice to have the ability to kind of lay out the shape of the extra buildings that you can purchase, because basically you can, once you've filled up all the space in your main building, you can buy the extra plot of land, but it's the additional buildings that you can buy are kind of predetermined, and so sometimes you end up with these slightly funny shaped buildings. And I was very particular about how I wanted the shape of the rooms and all the rest of it, and these additional buildings would just sometimes kind of not fit in with what I wanted. And considering it's essentially this derelict bit of land, it would have been nice to be able to kind of trace out within that land the building that you wanted. But apart from that, not really. How about you?
So I agree in terms of buying new plots of land. I think it would have been really cool to actually lay it out the shape that you wanted yourself and just pay for that particular shape. It could be a bit like something like The Sims, where you just expand to the shape that you want and it just tells you the cost that it's going to be, and then you just pay that cost if you can afford it from the funds of the hospital. I think they could have had multi-floor hospital buildings. If they had a way of switching between the floors, this could have been really cool. More realistic, I think, because I don't think I've ever been to hospital where its buildings are all one floor. In terms of floor switching, it could be something like The Sims again, the way that works, where you can switch between the first and second floors at the click of a button. I get that when Theme Hospital came out, they probably would have found it harder to do that kind of thing back in '97 with the graphic limitations, but surely with more advanced game engines now, they could do something like that, and The Sims just shows it probably could be done. I think it'd be good to have long-term sick patients with special rooms or wards that can cater for the patients. They could be in hospital for longer and receive visitors while they're in the hospital. I think it would have been good to have car parks added, so people arrive by car sometimes, and this would work well with the suggestion of having visitors for long-term patients. The car parks could be created by the player and expanded as the hospital grows. They could also be a source of income for the hospital and mean that not all the patients just being dropped off by one car, helicopter, or just walking in as they do in the game at the moment. I thought a day or night cycle would have been cool. As mentioned within the things I didn't like, I sometimes felt the game was too fast at times in terms of its pacing, and slowing it down and running at a pace where day and night cycles could be implemented would have been cool just for that extra bit of realism. So in terms of scores, what do you think on this one?
Well, this was a great game that brought back a lot of memories for me. I thoroughly enjoyed playing it and will definitely be coming back to it in the future. For me, this is a worthy successor to Theme Hospital, and so from me, this is an outstanding 9 out of 10.
Yeah, so I thought this game was awesome. It really builds off Theme Hospital, as we've said, and developers have done a really great job to keep the same vibe and the type of humour to the game without feeling like it's ripping it off in any way. It really feels like a worthy successor to a classic, and it's definitely one I'll keep playing. So same, it's a 9 out of 10 from me.
Well guys, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. Hit that bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video, and we'll see you in the next one.